Hello there and welcome to another portrait drawing video. My name is Yupari. I'd like to welcome you into this quick little charcoal sketch. So what we have here is Canson pastel paper that's been layered with charcoal. And if you want to know exactly what materials I'll be using, you can go ahead and scroll down to the description box below and I'll have all that information typed up for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is just consider the placement of the portrait. So I'm thinking the top of the head will fit here, the bottom here. I'm just trying to get an idea of the placement. And we're going to be working in a very subtractive approach, meaning we're going to subtract charcoal in this kind of fashion when we get to the lights, and I'll show you a little more in detail when we get there. So let's just consider simple shape. Straight line here. We're going to move the shape of the head up a little bit. Let's put in a little side plane here now. Just using simple straight lines and angles for this. And why not just incorporate some shadow from the background as well. So let's go ahead and fill in our first mass. Remember, mass just means exactly this. A mass is just a large area of shape, a large shape of value and color. But in this case, we're only going to be using just one color, which is the color of the charcoal. Can't talk today for some reason. Sorry. So let's just fill this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a stump to just kind of push the charcoal into the paper. Just a very simple shape. Now let's put a little bit more specificity to the shape of the top of the head. This goes down here. All right, so let's consider the axes for the eyes. So I'll tell you what, I'm not trying to be overly specific with this drawing too quickly. I'm trying to kind of feel the shapes around. It's a very expressive way of working. So if this is going to be the center line, remember the center line is what divides both sides of the face. And this center line is telling me that we're seeing a little bit more of this side of the face here and less of this side of the face. And remember, we're working with simple masses. It's kind of a painterly type of approach to charcoal drawing. So this right here is an accent for the concavity of the eye socket, of this eye socket here. And this is just going to be a simple shape for the cast shadow. And then of course we have a big old shape here for the muzzle of the mouth, which in this case is also going to be the mustache. So let's go right in with the chamois cloth. So this chamois is going to subtract quite a bit of charcoal, not quite as much as an eraser, but it does subtract quite a bit. And without getting into too much detail, I'm just trying to get the shape of the plane here containing the facial hair. So I'm applying a little more pressure here, and I'll show you something. So I'm going to apply a little less pressure with the chamois cloth up here towards the forehead. See how I'm getting some value, some variety in the tone. And now I'm going to use the paper towel. So this is going to be the plane, the side plane for the forehead. we're working with large planes, kind of like a sculptor would if this were a large block of clay. It's a very painterly approach. So that shadow goes in a little more like that. Let's go ahead and just stump this shape. And I like to use the stump to sometimes apply charcoal, see how I can kind of apply it. But I also like to use it to push the dark shape into the paper. See how it kind of pushes the shape right into the paper? Now I'm thinking of the overall structure of the head. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch to a cleaner piece of paper towel. So I kind of keep a variety of materials for charcoal, and you're going to see all of them, don't worry. So this is paper towel that's a little more clean. This is paper towel that's a little more dirty. And I kind of have one in the middle too. So let's just subtract a nice little shape here for the light on the skin tones. Just a little shape of light there. And let's go ahead and go right into the background. Put a little tone there for the background really quickly. So one thing I'll do is when I want to cover a large area, such as the background here, I'll keep a fairly used up stick of charcoal so that I don't really have to worry about sharpening it. I tend to sharpen the larger pieces of charcoal. So let's just go ahead and just fill in a tone here for the background. This is going to very quickly establish the large masses of value. I'm just using the paper towel that's a little more dirty. So our large masses include, we have 1 here, the shadow mass, 2 being the main light in the flesh tone, 3 being the light right here, 4, we can kind of group together 4 and the shadow mass for now. Let's go ahead and get into some smaller plane changes here. So here we have a bit of light reaching the top plane of this little region of the eye socket. So that plane is receiving quite a bit of light. And now we have, let's look at the other side. So what we do to one side, we want to do to the other. So let's subtract a little bit of light on the other side. So I'm going to work back and forth between my paper towel that contains more charcoal and the chamois. So it's going to help me kind of create these tones of value. One thing I could do is subtract quite a bit of charcoal like this. Come back with the chamois. Add a little bit back, but not quite too much. See how it's kind of mixing in? So if I subtract too much, then I can come back in with the paper towel. And this shape comes in a little more like that. Let's put in a little accent right here with a tear duct. Now I'm not going to put in the glasses quite yet. I'm going to focus for a while on just the shape of the head. And for the features, I'm going to put in very simple little accent marks such as these. A lot of likeness, likeness being making the drawing or the painting look like the model. A lot of likeness comes down to the shape of the head and the simple plane changes that you can describe. The goal here is to be simple yet accurate. We kind of play this game with ourselves. How simple can we be yet accurate? A little dark shape here, a little dark accent here for the nostril. Let's subtract a little bit here. A little shape there for the iris. Now remember, I'm not trying to put in any kind of details for the eyes. I can, look how loose this is. I can just go right over it like that. Just thinking of the shapes. And there's even quite a bit of light reaching right here. So this is the paper towel that has a lot of charcoal. Now watch what happens when I use the paper towel that has less charcoal. See how it subtracts more? I don't usually like to recommend brands very much since you know, they're not paying me to represent any brands. But with paper towel, I really like to use Viva brand. It's like I use the one that says like cloth-like. I don't know how they word it exactly, but cloth-like. All right, so I'm going to apply a little bit of charcoal onto the paper towel with more charcoal on it. And the way I do it is just my sandpaper that I use to sharpen my charcoal. Just dab it onto there. And see how I can add values with it? So sometimes I'll do that just so I can add and subtract with the paper towel. Just trying to get that large shape. This cuts in a little bit here. I'm very much just thinking about shape. Sometimes I don't even have to know what I'm looking at, to be honest. If I just think of shape. Just gonna stump that in a little bit. Now the charcoal that has a little bit, or sorry, the paper that has a little bit of charcoal, I'm gonna use it here to put in a little shape. And I tell you, this is one of my favorite ways of practicing portraits. I mean, I talked about this quite a bit with my last drawing video. But I really like this technique for practicing portrait drawing and portrait painting. And I like practicing in this way because it's very quick. Look how quickly I can just subtract. We can build portraits very quick using this technique, this subtractive technique for charcoal. The one downside though is if you want to preserve these drawings, you're going to have to either put them in glass or spray fixative on them and then put them in glass. A lot of my charcoal drawings don't tend to make it over the years. The charcoal will kind of fall off over time. So preserving charcoal drawings in this way is kind of difficult. So if preservation is what you're after, then you might want to work with graphite. Now, those of you that have a lot of experience with charcoal drawings and preserving charcoal drawings, if you have any advice to give others and to give me on how to preserve charcoal drawings, go ahead and let us know. All right, this shape comes in a little more like this. This comes in here. So yeah, I would really like to know your thoughts on how you preserve your charcoal drawings. Because I, for the most part, if I really want to save one, I just use workable fixative on it and then put it in glass. Let's just stump a little more over here. Now then, let's get a smaller stump. Stump this little region in here. Switch to some chamois. Start to put our first little glimpse there of the sclera. Remember, the sclera is the white of the eye, which is not white. And just for the purpose of demonstrating, let's put this dark shape in here. I'll show you how bright the Kneaded Eraser is in comparison to all the other darks. Pretty neat. You can work very quickly in this technique. A little bit of light there. Now with the chamois, let's go ahead and cut in this plane here for the bottom of the lower eyelid. Now let's try something kind of goofy here. Let's take our chamois and our small little stump. Let's just be kind of goofy today. So let's just try to use this to subtract. Hey, that actually kind of almost worked. And one thing I like to do with charcoal a lot is to experiment. Really like to experiment with charcoal. That little trick of adding charcoal to the paper towel, I just kind of figured out over time. And I like that kind of stuff, just figuring things out. Just kind of by exploring. I tend to consider myself more of an explorer of technique. The shape down here. And this is a very perceptual way of drawing, meaning I'm working more from observation, what I'm looking at, even though this is a photo reference that you have up there. I'm still giving my eye quite a bit of freedom, very much just working from observation, not really trying to copy the image that I'm looking at. That's never really what I'm after. I like observing the shapes and making artwork through that type of process. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Just a little bit of light here. Add a little more specificity here to the shape. So that is the plane change for the cheekbone, the zygomatic region of the portrait. And now we're establishing the terminator line with more definition. Terminator line is right there, the line terminating between the light and the dark. And what comes right next to the terminator line is the dark light right here. The dark light is the darkest value in the light tone just as you enter the shadow. And it's really what will describe the curvature of the form the best or the most efficiently. Put in a little value there. Just trying to observe the shapes. Speaking of shapes, one thing I'll do, don't know if it'll work right now, but I get my kneaded eraser and kind of sharpen the stump in this kind of fashion. It helps to kind of clean off the stump whenever I want to subtract with it. Notice how it's subtracting just a little bit. And we'll use this to push this in. See how it's kind of pushing that shape inwards? Just pushing it in just a little bit. And at the same time creating a little halftone there. Now switching back to the paper towel. The relatively clean paper towel. Let's subtract a little plane here. That shape has to come up quite a bit more than I had it. And now let's go in with the chamois again. Subtract the bottom of the nose. Now, of course, I subtracted more than I wanted, so I'm going to go back with the paper towel that has more charcoal on it. And actually, I'm going to use that to put in a little tone here. Probably put in too much, so let's just modulate that tone a little bit. Very simple there. Tell you what, let's use the eraser to see if we can subtract even more for the facial hair. And look at that. Yes, we can. So at this point, let's go ahead and subtract a little more of the facial hair. Subtract a little plane here. Plane change here for the top plane of the cheekbone. Let's follow through the other side. I'm still kind of working all around the portrait. I'm going to add a little bit of charcoal to the paper towel that has more charcoal on it. Even this shape needs a little adjusting. Let's just subtract a little bit from that. Very simple. And just like in painting, when you get really used to your palette and your palette mixtures and you kind of automatically reach for a certain color, that's kind of what happens with charcoal as well. Kind of just automatically know which material to switch to. Subtract a little bit of light here for the hair with the chamois. Switching to the paper towel, the relatively clean paper towel. Back to the charcoal, the smaller piece of charcoal that I'm not too worried about in terms of how sharp it is. Just add a little bit of definition to this edge. This is a very painterly way of working. And let's go ahead and just add in this value. Looks like we're going to start to add in some background. So let's use the stump, a little tiny stump, to see if we can subtract a little bit. See, with a little pressure, I'm starting to create the lower eyelid. So now we're going to want to get a little more specific with this. So the same thing up here for the upper eyelid. See how we're kind of carving away and getting a little more specificity. So the peak of convexity for this eye, the peak of convexity, remember peak of convexity just means kind of the top of the roller coaster. So the top of the roller coaster is right here. And then it starts to go all the way down this way. See that? Peak of convexity, then starts to go down. Switch to the stump again. Subtract a little bit. It's a little tiny shape here for the upper eyelid. This is how we're going to build specificity. Let's use this stump here to subtract a little bit of charcoal. And now we'll go back in. Gonna switch to a sharper, if I have one in hand. Okay, never mind. I'm just gonna sharpen this. So here's how I sharpen it. Just kind of rolling all around. See that? So I guess you're getting a kind of video on how I sharpen the charcoal. Just keep spinning and spinning. All right, so now that's sharp. Let's go ahead and get the, I don't even know what you call this, the dark shape around the iris. And then we have the pupil. Pupil there. And now let's go ahead and put the highlight back. Now we're getting really specific. Stump. Let's go ahead and make this a little darker. So the side plane of the bottom portion of the eye socket for the orbicularis oculi, if I can even pronounce that. The muscle containing this little shape here for the eye. Now there's going to be a little plane change right here, just beneath the sclera. So right here is going to be top plane of the tear duct, or at least the shape really close to the tear duct. Let's go ahead and put this dark shape here. There's even a little cast shadow from the glasses here. I know the glasses, we haven't put them in yet, but let's just put this shadow. This dark shape here. Now, I know that the photo reference, I know someone's going to comment that the photo reference is not very high quality. And I actually took this photo reference of my friend Bill a long time ago, probably almost a year ago. Well, I want to do more, I want to create more videos of these charcoal drawings and paintings. And right away when I took the picture, I was still using my smartphone. I knew I really liked the composition of the picture, but the resolution wasn't that good. For painting, there are instances where you want to use photo references that are of less resolution, like this one, when you want to work more expressive and less tight being less photographic. And that's what I want to do with this charcoal drawing. I don't want to be too overly realistic with it. And so I thought it was the perfect situation. So one little tiny thing about me and the models that I choose, I really like to paint people that I know or people that I've met. And I ask people at drawing sessions or painting groups or anything like that, whenever there's a live model present, I'll ask if I can take a photo reference so I can use it for YouTube. And if I'm lucky, they'll agree. It's not always the case. I don't really like to paint pictures of people I don't know, such as celebrity portraits or something like that. You'll never see me do that unless I know the celebrity or something. So now with the eye, with this eye, I'm kind of relating the same shapes that I put in for this eye on this side. So there's a little angle right here, the concavity of the eye socket goes in like this. Now with the kneaded eraser, I'm going to go ahead and kind of define this edge a little bit. Switching back to this stump, I'm going to subtract a little bit. Back to the charcoal. Just define this little outline here for the iris. Let's go ahead and modulate this shape a little bit. I think it's time to add the glasses. So I'm going to, let's see, first subtract a little bit of light here because we're seeing some of the hair over there. So just subtracting a little bit of light. Now that's a little too much, but it's all right. We'll come back in later and correct that. So let's take a look at this shape here. So this is one corner of the glasses. Now let's look at the other corner. Right about there. I'm actually gonna have to use something else. I'm gonna use a stump for this. All right, so let's look at the corners of the glasses now. So one corner here, the other corner there. And they're about kind of correct. Now remember, I'm not trying to copy the image I'm looking at. I'm trying to interpret it in terms of shapes. So let's see. So in terms of relating shapes, let's explain how I'm doing that. So here, imagine this is like a little roller coaster. I tend to use that analogy a lot. So roller coaster up the eye and then take off over here, and this is where we're going to land. And this is kind of where the bottom portion of the glasses is. There are little, kind of like two rims, but there's where that goes. Subtract a little highlight for it. Very simple. Now let's go and indicate the top portion. Here we go, fits right about there. And now the corners. One corner here. Another, actually, you know what? Let's use the, let's use the stump again to subtract this one. Here's the other corner. I was about to use the eraser, but I think the stump might do a little better. There we go. Okay, now let's see here. The bottom. So let's look at this shape first. Comes around here. Now let's relate the other side. comes about down here. And we can't forget the cast shadow for the glasses. So that's going to go in about there. Let's go ahead and push the charcoal in with the stump. And I think that this shape needs to come out that way a little more. So let's use the stump again. So yeah, I think that shape needed to come out a little more. No biggie. All right, let's push this back here. Back to the eraser. Subtract a little bit of light there. Now this is going to continue. There's actually going to be a little cast shadow up here. So it's going to change the cast shadow shape of the nose a little bit. Let's use the stump to push that in. Let's use a little more stump to subtract a little bit of charcoal. And that is so that I can come back and do this. Put this line. I think that needs to come out a little closer to the rim. So no problem. Charcoal is really forgiving. Let's just push that out. See? Mistakes are okay. Think of a mistake as a building block to success. This comes out to here now. It's looking a little closer. All right, now let's go ahead and relate to the other side. Actually, there's a dark shape here that's sticking out that I feel like I should put in. There we go. Now there's going to be a little cast shadow here from the bottom of the glasses. Stump that into place. Now there's a little light here, so let's go ahead. Actually, first I'm going to put a little charcoal here. Okay, so there's a little light coming out here. Let's use the point. We rolled the eraser up into a little point. Subtracting a little bit. Kind of want to subtract more. It's a little better. There's also a little highlight here. It's a little tiny highlight there for the glasses. And here is going to be the little thing that holds the glasses. The little, the rim for the glasses. I don't even know what it's called. I'm referring to this, the corner of this. Now then, over here, on the other side, let's add a little more for this little shape here, and then connect it to the ear. Nice and simple there. Now we have some glasses. You know what? Let's get a little crazy. Let's put in some of the background. I was going to initially just make it like a standard head, like I usually do, but since charcoal is so fun and easy to move around, we're going to go ahead and add some of the shapes for the background. So right now I'm working additively, if I can even pronounce today. So I'm adding the charcoal onto here. Gonna switch very quickly to chamois. There we have a little shape for the shirt. Same kind of thing over here. Adding in the little collar. And let's use the eraser now for this light. There we go. A little bit of light there. Now let's switch to the stump. Now the stump subtracts less than the eraser, so that leaves that little glimpse of light here. Let's move along fairly quickly now. Do you want to see how I draw a button? Let's draw a button. Little dark shape here. Let's fill in the whole thing. I'm going to use a stump. Light on the corner of the button. Light over here. Some little dark shapes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have a button. Alright, so this goes in here. Now this shape needs to be a little more smooth. I'm going to go in with the stump. Just push this into here. And I'm not going to put the entire background in, but I don't know. I just feel like putting in some more stuff here for the environment. Little shape here. The drapery. Oh man, this is a lot of fun. I do recommend you try this at home. Just making lots of big, simple shapes of light and dark to express an environment. This is truly a lot of fun. Little dark shape here. So let's suppose that the corner of his shoulder goes out to about here. Now there's going to be a little cast shadow from the rim of the chair. Something like that. Let's fill that in. Oof, that's lots of fun. Let's go in with the chamois, subtract that light. Now the rest of this shadow, let's go ahead and fill this in for the rest of this shadow. This comes out to about here. Now we have a little shadow being casted from his shoulder. Very, very simple. Just filling in the large masses. So this is going to go up a little bit. Now I'll tell you what, there's going to be a cast shadow on the back here that's going to have to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in and then stump this to create a value that's dark, but not as dark as that. There we go. Nice and simple. Now let's fill in the rest of this shape. This is a lot of fun. I will say working in this way will tire out your arm. It's a good exercise for your arm. Filling in the entire background. This is probably going to be my workout for the day. Filling in these shapes, and let's put in the corner of the chair over there, and a little corner over here. Now I'm going to want to leave some of these charcoal marks So I'm gonna let the background be pretty loose. You know me, you know I like to use vignettes a lot. And if you don't know what a vignette is exactly all of this areas of the drawing or painting that you leave unfinished on purpose to contrast the areas that are more finished. Now I know it's not a super realistic portrait, but it has a little more information than the background, so we'll call the background a vignette, or at least this area the vignette. Stump, we're going to stump this. And this still feels like it needs to be lighter. So I'm going to use the charcoal, or sorry, the paper with less charcoal, just to subtract only a little bit. Very tiny bit subtracted. Now let's actually push this shape out a little bit. Pushing and pushing the shapes. Paper towel. I'm gonna just leave some little hatch marks right here, just for the sake of aesthetics. Let's put in some information for the mouth now. So we have this general shape that we placed in earlier, so let's build on top of this shape. So let's see. So I'm thinking of the distance from the root of the nose to the middle of the upper lip. This is also a plane referred to as the philtrum. So I'm thinking of the length of the philtrum. I think it comes out to about here. Don't have to be too worried about the detail involved in the mouth, but a little bit of focus into where it needs to fit, I think, is a little more important. So let's say that's possibly where it's going to be. That is the top of the upper lip. So notice how I'm kind of switching back and forth between the stump and the charcoal. All right, so now let's put in a very simple shape here. So that would be one corner of the mouth. Let's also let's use a straight line to relate the corner of the nose to the mouth. So it looks like that might be good. Might have to move it a little further like that. That might work. Okay, so now relating this side to this side. That goes out. There's going to be a simple little shape here. Very simple little shape. Now then, there's a little more light catching the bottom here. So let's subtract a little bit, but not too much. So barely applying any pressure. Almost no pressure there. Now I'm going to switch to the cloth that has more charcoal on it. Just make it a little darker down here. Let's go ahead and use it to soften this shape a little bit. Just a little softer. Now I'm going to switch to the Kneaded Eraser. Now we have some more light here. Let's put in some indications for individual strands of hair now. Very simple. Now with the stump, I'm going to come back and make this even softer. It's actually a very soft edge. At least it appears to be soft to me. Subtract a little more light over here just to create that edge. Not too much. I'm going to use the stump to actually add a little bit of charcoal. And pretty much just use the charcoal that was on the stump itself. So now we have some little indications we need to put in here of the hair. Just trying to carefully select which shapes I want to put in for this. Don't want to put in too much. The goal is to know how much is enough. And it's alright if we put in too much. Can always just soften the edges. See how that's starting to create a little plane change for the facial hair? Don't think about the individual strands of hair, rather think about the large planes. This comes in like this. It's actually should be a little softer there. Or should I say a little lighter? So I'm going to subtract a little bit with the stump. If you're struggling with any of the features, and in particular with the mouth, like most of us do, I certainly do. One thing that kind of helps me out, at least with the mouth, is not thinking about the mouth itself, but thinking about the structure encompassing the mouth. And then you'll find that a lot of information in the mouth itself, like rendering like the lips or something like that, isn't really as important as the structure encompassing the mouth. Think about, just look up close-up images of Diego Velázquez paintings, or John Singer Sargent paintings, or some of Rembrandt's paintings in his later years. You can really see that you don't need that much information for the mouth, actually. You could even paint the mouth in maybe 3 or 5 brush strokes, and same goes with drawing. Don't need that much to get the form to read. A little bit of light there. Subtract a little bit here, but not too much. Now for the nose, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the terminator line. So just using a stump, actually I'm going to add some charcoal to the stump. So just using the stump, I'm going to, actually that's pushing, somehow the stump is subtracting too much. What I'm trying to do is just adjust the terminator line here for the nose. So it looks like I might have to do this additively, which is okay, meaning just adding charcoal onto it. So I'm very softly applying the charcoal, just trying to create this dark light. Remember, the terminator line is the area that basically the boundary between light and shadow, and then the dark light is exactly this tone that I'm applying onto the nose. It's the darkest value in the light, just as light turns into shadow. Whoops, I almost used the stump again. My stump is misbehaving, so I'm not going to use it. And that ought to do it for that value transition. Now I'm just going to add a little highlight for the nose, right here on the bulb of the nose. It's very lightly subtracting. I don't want to take too much out. I think it's in the wrong spot. So hopefully the stump will take out that highlight. And it looks like it has. just adjust the shape a little bit. The highlight actually has to go down here. There we go. Just applying the tiniest bit of pressure to get that highlight to read. And then, since the stump is deciding to pick up charcoal for some reason, I'm going to go ahead and just use it to do that. Just pick up some of the charcoal down here, just so we have very clean gradation of tone as we build up to the highlight. Softening this edge here. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is just kind of even out this little section of the shirt. I don't know why, but it just started bothering me that this one area was a little bit lighter than everything else. So let's just even that out. And go back in with the charcoal. Put that shape back in there. And that's just for the sake of aesthetics, really. It was just starting to bother me that that one light plane was sticking out so much. So let's just make this a little more smooth. Just want to keep this nice and simple. All right, I think that's going to be just about it for this portrait drawing and demonstration. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that these videos are helping you out. I wish you the best in all of your artwork, and I'll see you on the next one.